Hello and welcome to Divorce Discussions. I am Angie Weber, the director of the Divorce Support Collective. At the Collective, we are on a mission to reimagine the process of divorce through collaboration and support from contemplation to thriving post-decree. And we're so excited to bring you another episode of Divorce Discussions where we sit down with professionals who are helping people navigate divorce with confidence, clarity, and care. It's our mission and goal today as you watch this to empower, educate, and inspire you. And today we are joined by Nancy Gabriel. Now, Nancy is a divorce and family mediator who has been in private practice for over 13 years. So she is going to be able to share a lot of great information with all of you viewers today. So thank you very much for joining us today, Nancy.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into it because there might be some viewers out there who are thinking, what do you mean mediation? Because a lot of people think if I'm getting divorced, I got to go get the shark attorney and it's going to take years and we're going to be battling and we're going to deplete ourselves emotionally, financially, and also with our time. So, what exactly is divorce mediation for people who don't know about it?
Mediation is conducted by a neutral third party, such as myself. I am not an attorney. I am highly experienced in facilitating conversations with people in conflict, i.e., couples or co-parents, to navigate the process so that they can come to their own resolution. And that's the key to mediation. We don't tell them what to do. We help them make the most informed decision by asking questions and facilitating conversations. Because after all, who knows what's better for their family than the two of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said you're not telling them what to do, but you're
Right.
really guiding them on what the options are and possibilities. But
Right.
would you say that mediation is good for everyone, or what are some signs that mediation might be a good fit and maybe a few that might be not a great fit for them?
So what I like to say is if you are a type of person or your partner is a type of person who needs to be right, then mediation won't work. Mediation is about coming to the table. If you're a family, you're always going to be a family, even though you're no longer a couple. So I need for them to put the children first, put their egos aside. And if they can't do that, if they need to be right and prove the other party wrong, then they're better served by hiring an attorney who will advocate for them.
Yeah, great viewpoints of that. Now, do you only work with people who have children, or do you work with other
No,
individuals who do?
no. Yeah, there's typically two aspects to a divorce, the financial and the parenting. So if they have grown children or if they have no children, or if they're a blended family and no children of that specific marriage, they're fine. You know, we'll deal with their assets, their debts, and help them move forward. And what I try to do is help them move forward with dignity and respect and some extra cash in their pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. And because mediation is a great alternative to going out and getting that lawyer. So I absolutely love that. Now, I know you talk a lot about fair versus equal, and I'm assuming that you've probably come into contact with couples where one of them is saying, well, this isn't fair, this isn't fair, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. So, what
Right.
is the difference between fair and equal when it comes to divorce mediation?
It's a huge difference. And I'm so glad you asked that question, Angie. I probably say it in my sleep. Fair is a perception. And one party's perception of what's fair may be very different from the other party's perception of what's fair. Let's say you have a career military person and a stay-at-home parent. And that military person has been sweating. I'm just going to say it's the dad for this conversation. He's been working and sweating for 20 plus years to arrive at this military pension, while the mom has been staying at home raising the kids. And the dad is very possessive of his pension. And he says, that's not fair. Why do I have to share it? But equal, of course, is math. We divide by two. Nevada, where I practice, is a community property state. So typically, if you went to court, a judge would divide by two and say, get out of here, have a nice day. But as a mediator, I want to hear what each party's perception is of what's fair in order to help them arrive at some sort of a compromise.
Yeah, I think that's great. And again, you're that outside party too. I think when, people go through divorce, we want to first go to our friends and our family and get their viewpoint of it.
Right.
However, they have a lot emotionally invested into
Right.
that relationship as well, even from an outside perspective. So having a professional come in and really look at, okay, well, what's your perception and how can we try come to a resolution is great. Now,
Exactly.
with being a mediator, however, are attorneys involved sometimes in those mediations?
They can be. I have no problem mediating with an attorney, but I let them know from the start that I'm the boss, that I'm controlling this process. If they want to have a private conversation with their client at any point, we'll take a break. But unless there's a question of law, where I look to the advice of counsel to say, how is child support calculated in Nevada, for example? I mean, I know that answer, but they would rather hear it from their attorneys. It's more costly because they're paying their attorneys and they're paying me, but sometimes they just need that comfort or protection or security. I'm fine with that.
Sure. Now, what if one partner is like, yes, I just want to use the mediator, and the other partner is not necessarily open to it and only wants to use a lawyer? Is there any way that works out in this situation?
Well, that's a really good question. My first instinct is to say no, they're not candidates for mediation. It kind of depends on the lawyer
Mm.
because I have many colleagues who are what I like to call enlightened family law attorneys, and they understand that I am just an alternative. I am not the competition, although kind of I am. So if the lawyer is on board, then we'll try it. We'll see. I can take a baby step with the person who's a little bit hesitant and say, let's give it a half an hour. If you're uncomfortable, I'll end the mediation. And, baby steps are really important to me in my world. And so I sort of test the waters with my prospective clients and see, especially if one of them just wants to cave and get it over with. And I think that's not in her best interests. I will say, you know what, I'm booked solid for the next 2 weeks, and let's schedule something 3 weeks from today, just to give that person some time to adjust instead of settling too quickly. And I also like to tell my clients, get support wherever you can. But at the end of the day, you are the decision makers.
Mm, All right, great points, great points. Now, okay, we've already talked about some of the advantages, and one of them is kind of the timeline of their divorce, getting to those signed papers. Um,
Mhm.
in average, of course, there are definitely, different outliers, but in average, how long does mediation typically take?
It depends. What I try to facilitate the process that to expedite it in the sense that once I've been retained, I'll send my clients a couple of worksheets, one on finance and one on parenting, because the more decisions they can make in advance without my help, the more efficient the process will be. And I have had cases, and Nevada courts, particularly in the county where I practice, love mediators. They love the settlement agreements that I prepare, and they love the joint petition for divorce to which that settlement agreement is attached. And they will, within a day or maybe two, issue the final decree of divorce a day or two after filing. I had one case a few years ago where the husband was relocating to Canada. He was a professional athlete and they had a kid. They came in my office on a Monday afternoon. I sent them a draft of their settlement agreement on Tuesday morning. They had one minor change. I made the change. They came in Tuesday afternoon, signed the settlement agreement in my office, went straight to the paralegal's office. He electronically filed on their behalf, and they were divorced on Wednesday. That's a record.
That's pretty
That's a record.
quick.
But I mean, I've had people that have the process has gone on for months and months. And it really depends on the parties and where they stand in terms of compromise.
Sure. Now,
Yeah.
once they agree on the settlement, let's say they agree on it, can that be changed?
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. I'm so glad you asked that because I would have forgotten to say that. Other than spousal support, which if they waive it, or alimony is another word for that, if they waive it in Nevada, that can't be modified. But everything else can be modified, from child support to custody to visitation. Typically, though, as of the date of the final decree of divorce, their financial assets have been divided. So most of what can be modified is with regard to parenting. And I like to build in a safety net there and suggest to my clients that they have a clause in their settlement agreement to where they agree to meet once or twice a year to revisit the parenting portion, because as their children get older, their children's needs change. And I tell them, you don't need to come back to me. You don't need to go to a lawyer. You don't need to go to court. But if you make any changes, do them in writing. I prefer email in that instance. Do them in writing between the two of you, and you're good to go. Now, if you can't come to an agreement by meeting with each other, then they need to come back to me or to another mediator before they seek litigation.
Yeah, I love that safety net that you have in there because you're right. As parents, if people get divorced when their parents are or their children are young, they're
Mhm.
going to go through different seasons and life changes and develop more and have, stronger opinions and knowing that, you really may have to change that along the way. As a parent coach myself, I always like to tell people, you have two different areas that you're looking at. One, how are you going to be the best parent you can be if you have your children only part of the time, if you're sharing custody? And also,
Mhm.
how are you going to develop this relationship with your ex? Because just because you get divorced, it just means that you no longer have a romantic relationship. But if kids are involved, you still have some kind of relationship with them, and you need to figure out
Right.
how to best navigate it. So,
Yeah, yeah. I wrote a document several years ago that I call the Co-Parenting Bill of Rights.
yeah.
And I'm going to send it to you. It's based on the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And it basically says we're not going to discuss our finances in front of the kids. We're not going to pump our kids for information when they come back from the other parent's house. We're going to speak respectfully about the other parent, et cetera. There's 10 amendments. And depending on the age of the kids, I encourage my clients to sit down at the kitchen table and read these out loud. And there's a signature block at the bottom. Have your kids sign it too. Then they'll feel like they're more a part of this agreement and they understand that they're the priority.
Yeah, I love that. Now, we've talked a lot about how you really focus on the two different aspects, the parenting and the financial. And
Mhm.
through many of these conversations, we also know that the emotional piece is very large in divorce. And so one of the things that the Divorce Support Collective that we really are trying to do as we're building up our professionals that we have is to really help give options to kind of that A team. Because as we already talked about, you work with lawyers sometimes. I know that you've worked with parent coordinators. So who would you suggest besides just a mediator? Who are the other important people that individuals should look at to have a part of their team while going through divorce to help them thrive?
I don't have an answer for that, Angie. It could be a parent. It could be a spiritual component, a minister or a rabbi or a priest, or it could be just a mentor. There's so many people that whose advice I know I seek and respect. So it's a matter of trust and respect. So that's a great question. And I want to incorporate that now into some of my mediations and say, give me a short list of whose advice you honor. And let's talk about that some more.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad that I could help give you some other insights to think about as well, because again, while going through divorce, there are so many different things to think about. And again, that's why we have the collective to make people aware, to educate, to inspire, to empower them as they're going through this journey so that they don't feel like they have to do it alone. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, we just don't know what we don't know. So we're here to support and offer some of those solutions to them. Now, Nancy, do you only work in Nevada or can you work in other states as well?
Well, I can work in other states as well, but I'm not familiar with family law in other states. So I tend to shy away from it. However, if it's not a divorce situation, if it's family situation where, and I've done many of these where dad just died and the two sisters haven't talked for 3 years, I can do that. I've had some really interesting family mediations where we've let them air their grievances uninterrupted, and then as a mediator, I find out some commonalities and help them focus on that and what will it take to enable you to move forward. Not all of them are successful, I'll be honest, because some people are just stuck. And if you can recognize that and not push, maybe we get an inch out of it, and that's okay too.
Yeah, totally understandable. I mean, again, a lot of emotions get involved in those types of situations too. So it's
Mhm.
always great to have that third party outsource perspective to help them hopefully come to an agreement. So, Nancy,
I did a family mediation where each of the parents were divorced. They had three adult daughters. The parents were divorced when the youngest adult daughter was 12. And everybody came from different states and they had a timeshare. And we sat in the living room of one of the timeshares. And it was like picture a cat with a ball of yarn going from here to here to here because mom had an issue with middle daughter and younger daughter had an issue with older sister. And we just talked for 5 hours. We laughed, we cried, I cried. And at the end of the day, everybody had a voice and everybody had a strategy of moving forward. It was one of the best mediations I've ever done. And I still think about it. I love that family.
yeah, that sounds amazing. Well, Nancy, we so appreciate your time today and sharing this information and knowledge with our viewers. Is there any last tip or piece of advice you would like to leave people with?
Well, I would say listen. My dad used to say we have two ears and one mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. But listen to understand instead of listening to respond.
I think that is a great ending note because communication is just as much about listening as it is about talking. So,
Right.
thank you for that insight. And again, thank you for your time today. For you viewers out there, if you are interested in learning more from Nancy, definitely check out the caption and you are going to be able to get connected with her, especially if you're there in Nevada and looking for this type of support. I'm sure she's happy to answer any questions you have for her. So, again, thank you for joining us. And of course, if you're looking for additional support as you're navigating divorce from contemplation to thriving post-decree, check out our website, thedivorcecollective.com, and we will see you next time on Divorce Discussions.